Everyone finds their way to the Gulag at some point. It doesn't matter how good you are as a player, sometimes you get caught off guard, cross-map sniped, or just generally screw up and you wind up there. Now for most people, the Gulag is an intense 1v1 at the best of times. If you're a solo, it's quite literally the only chance you've got to continue the game. If you're part of a team, then it's either a chance to redeem yourself or possibly rescue your other squad mates with your respawn. The problem is that it's exactly the same for the other player, and you can bet he's going to be trying just as hard as you are to come out on top. Fortunately for you, there's plenty of tactics and tricks that you can employ to give you the edge, hence this video. I would just like to mention that I am playing on PC, but these tips will definitely be useful to people playing on any console, as Gulag is just as difficult on Xbox or PS4. First off is to avoid the temptation to simply sprint straight towards your opponent. I know there's a time limit and all the pressure to get back to the main game faster, but you've got to take your time here. If you run right at them and they're waiting for you, you're just going to get clapped, and that's that. By the same token, they may also choose to run right at you, and then one of two things is going to happen. One, you run right into each other, and then it's a matter of reaction time and luck. Sure, if you're 100% confident in your ability to react to any given scenario perfectly, then you'll be fine, but be realistic. Two, you both end up switching sides, and then you're pretty much back where you started. Neither of these is of any use if you want to give yourself the best chance of winning the Gulag fight. Instead of charging in, you should really hang back, at least for a few seconds. If your opponent rushes you, you'll be ready and waiting. It'll be easier for you to get your first shots off, especially as your opponent has to deal with the delay between sprinting and shooting. The split second advantage is worth its weight in gold in the Gulag. Plus, if they don't rush you, then it gives you time to get your lethal and tactical equipment. This brings us nicely to tip number 2, and I cannot tell you how much I see this overlooked in Gulag videos and in general gameplays, and that is to use your equipment. A well-placed stun or flash grenade can give you a monstrous advantage that you should be happy to take advantage of. Given the perfectly balanced nature of the Gulag, disorientating and disabling your enemy is about as perfect a situation as you can hope for. If you wait those first few seconds out at the start of the round, you can get your tactical, which I would recommend getting off as soon as possible. I would recommend this even if you can't see where your opponent is. Now I want to explain this more clearly. If your grenade hits them, then you're set. You've got the prime opportunity to rush them and either do some damage or get yourself an easy kill. If the class you spawn with happens to have a lethal that's throwable, then you can follow up with that. Chances are you'll either kill them or at least damage them. Now if your tactical grenade does miss, then that's not a bad thing either. You have a good idea of where they aren't, which naturally makes it a bit easier to pinpoint where they are. Normally I'd be saying to conserve your tactical kit until you're sure you can get a good hit, but the time constraints of the Gulag mean that this just isn't practical. This point is closely linked to the first one. Often in the gameplay on the screen, you'll see me pause at the start of the match, watching to see if my opponent is going to rush me and listening out to see if I'm getting flanked. Then, as soon as my tactical is ready, I follow off with that. Lethals themselves are much more obvious, but I still don't see them used frequently. If you combo a Molotov cocktail and a flash grenade hit, you're pretty much guaranteed to kill with very little work. C4 as well, as much as I despise the thing, is a very powerful weapon. As the throwing range in this game is so vast, you can quite literally hurl it from one side of the Gulag to the other. They offer an easy way to get a kill, or at the very least force your opponent out of cover. They're there in your inventory, so you might as well put them to good use. I will admit though, that this tip is absolutely useless if you end up with a smoke grenade or the proximity mine. Sure, the smoke grenade might help you confuse the enemy, but chances are that it will just confuse you as well. The proximity mine is also pointless, as I don't think I've ever seen a kill with it, and more often than not, I simply die when deploying it. In this scenario, you won't be able to use any fancy tips or tricks to help you out, I'm afraid. Number 3 is to stay away from the flag. If you reach the point when capturing becomes an option to win, do not get panicky and rush for it. The flag is extremely exposed, which is only going to make your life harder. If your opponent had a lethal left, then chances are they're going to chuck it right at it, and if they don't, then you're quite literally a sitting duck waiting to die. By the same token, don't hide out the back of the map, as they could well be on the flag without you knowing. Instead, push up to the centre of the map and stay patient. Hopefully they'll make a break for the flag and end up exposing themselves. You've got a far higher likelihood of picking them off when they're trying to capture the flag than being able to defend yourself when you're the one doing the capturing. Fourth is to know the range of your gun, and this one has a lot to do with practice as much as anything else. When you've got no plates and limited space, the range of weapons is surprising. Shooting across the Gulag with any of the pistols is easily done. The Magnum or Deagle are even one-shot headshots. If you feel confident in your accuracy, then taking someone out with a one-shot headshot is definitely your fastest means of winning. Don't worry about getting too up close and personal, as you simply don't need to most of the time. The shotguns are only slightly different as well. The 7.25 is a reliable 2-shot kill at distance due to the limited health. To be honest, you really want to feel confident with any of the weapons that you're handed. This is something that will generally come with in-game hours. If you really want to, you can practice with the guns in multiplayer or in Warzone, but that's a faff and time consuming. Fifth is not over reloading. A common FPS habit shared by nearly every single multiplayer player out there is to reload no matter how many bullets you've shot. Most of the time this is fine, but in the confinement of the Gulag it's really not. The problem is that the reload time stays the same regardless of how much ammo you've got left. Taking a pot shot on reloading leaves you exposed when you really don't need that extra bullet. Instead, you should be worrying about getting a clear scope on your opponent and dealing with them. They are just as likely to push a reload advantage as you are. They'll possibly hear you and rush you, and you'll be left with very little to do besides running away. Generally, if you've got 3/4 of your magazine left, you can go without reloading unless you know you're 100% safe. Although it's worth remembering that I advise the exact opposite for shotguns. If you have the 7.25, you want both barrels full no matter what. A hit marker at shotgun range is a big problem for anyone. The R90 is a little different as it does have a magazine. For this gun specifically, make sure you always have 2 bullets in the chamber so that you can follow up your first shot. If that means venting a shot for no reason, then you may as well do it. Point 6 is to keep your position changing. I personally play on PC. I'm not advocating drop shotting. I find it to be pretty useless as it it just slows you down. Anyone with decent accuracy can track you no problem, but this is different on consoles to be fair. What I would recommend is making sure to jump, crouch and slide as much as possible. Being unpredictable makes you far harder to hit, and there's not a situation where this isn't useful. If you're pushing your enemy, it will make retaliation a lot harder, as tracking shots on a jumping enemy isn't easy. The same goes for running away. If you're sliding around corners, they'll have a much harder time hitting you. It may feel alien at first to be moving so sporadically, but if you become confident, it can be a serious edge. Tip 7 is that spraying and praying isn't always a bad thing. Sure, everyone has seen professional COD players with crazy accuracy that never miss, but for the majority of people, that's not the case. If you're flash, for example, then aiming in is more than likely to make your life even harder. In the same vein, if an enemy gets a drop on you and you've got a small window to react in, firing from the hip is better than nothing. While you're leaving your fate to the hands of the gods, you may get lucky. If you don't, at least you tried. Sometimes you're simply going to be outmaneuvered by your opponent, and this is going to be your only option. Definitely, you should prioritise being accurate in this match if you can. If you've got limited ammo and running out wouldn't be ideal, but if you're up against the wall, then aimlessly accepting defeat without even trying seems pointless. If you've got nothing to lose, you may as well try. Finishing off with number 8 is to not worry about it. Sure, the Gulag is an intense match, a test of skill for the most part that can have a lot riding on it. If you succumb to pressure, you may well perform worse than you would normally. Some people are great under pressure, and if that's you, then thrive off it and go for it. But if it's not, then that's okay. You can't win every fight you get into, and that's fine. We all meet players that are better than us. Being outplayed just gives you a chance to take away the positives and work on the negatives. Plus, you may get killed by something that you simply couldn't do anything to avoid. A lucky grenade or C4 can't be predicted or avoided. Sometimes you just have to accept it and move on. Don't carry your loss to the next match. It's a game after all, and we all have to lose in order to get better. I hope this video has been of some use to you all. I've tried to explain these tips in detail, but also in a manner that isn't boring or lengthy. If you stay on the grind and enjoy the game, you're sure to see improvement. Build your own playstyle and play to your strengths, and work on your weaknesses. Hopefully these tips will give you the leg up in the Gulag that you need to come out on top.